You're watching the GameSpot co-op stage, sponsored by LEGO Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
We are here on the GameSpot co-op stage at E3 2016, rounding out the show with a look back at the best things we experienced, we saw, we loved at E3 2016. I am your host, Chris Waters. Joining me on set, I have Jovenshire.
What up?
Yeah, he wasn't expecting.
You expected me to go all the way down the line.
It was nice to have that individual attention. I appreciate it. I
give it
thank
to
you
you.
for that.
And now I'm going to give it to Sohinki.
Hey, was that a little better?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, I'm
Lasercorn, what do you
going
got,
on,
buddy?
everyone?
Hey, all right.
Same thing.
Okay, last year's E3, lots to talk about. VR, AR, this is the future. This year's E3, it was still, VR was still very much on everyone's mind, still a big part of Sony's presence. It didn't feel like as much of a huge push, but we still had some great experiences, or very intriguing experiences revealed.
And you're right, as we talk about E3, each year has a theme. We've touched on that a little bit. Last year, it was VR. Like, everyone announced VR and AR with Microsoft. Like, everyone was announcing something. And so this year, you got to see, all right, this is what we were talking about. Well, now this is what we're doing. And I was surprised to see, like, Resident Evil.
Absolutely.
Fully playable from beginning to end on PlayStation VR. I was like, oh,
it makes
that's
sense.
what we can expect. Yeah,
I mean,
especially with a new style of game.
Watching the demo, it just makes sense. It looks like I will be throwing up everywhere, but from fear and the VR.
The VR sickness is a factor.
It's really funny that you mentioned that. I think we've come a long way with the game mechanics and how the games are being built for VR. From when we had like the first dev kits of Oculus, where you'd have like 1 or 2 man teams creating a game, versus now you have Capcom getting their hands into VR, and like it's the motion. It's when you have a controller in your hand. This is what I found it is. It's like when you have a controller in your hand. Before VR, it's left stick moves your body, right stick moves your head, and we became accustomed to that.
Yeah,
now you can move your eyes.
Yeah, your eyes with it.
But you're moving your head to move your eyes while your stick moves your head.
So it's finding the best ways to create movement, and we're seeing something like X-Wing Fighter. As soon as they announced that, I'm like, yes,
that's a no-brainer.
This makes sense. I can look around in the cockpit. I can fly my X-Wing. This is what I want.
Cockpit games are a perfect fit. I mean, Eve Valkyrie has been great already, and like, you don't have to worry about that motion thing where like, okay, I'm legs and I am the torso that moves like this.
Yeah.
Like that's not you. That's not how you work. But that is how you work if you're playing a first-person shooter on a console.
And speaking of movement, I think my biggest surprise was with the announcement of Batman Arkham.
Okay.
And then being able to witness the demo. It was very interesting that they went with a style that I thought was best used in. We played Budget Cut on the
Budget Cuts?
Vive.
I could talk about budget cuts for like 20 minutes straight.
For those who didn't play that on the Vive, you would shoot a portal out. You can look. It was a stealth game, so you can look what's around the portal, and then you teleport.
Decide to actually warp there.
So it's a teleport system, so you never had to worry about moving and getting
disoriented. Because the Vive, you can move around in that little square, but essentially you're moving your square around, and because it's a stealth game, they give you the option to peek around and stuff before you actually decide to teleport to that location.
Which cannot wait to see more of Budget Cuts.
Yeah, it was just a demo we've gotten to play so far, but yeah, it's great because you don't have to worry about the motion sickness or anything, and it really gets you into the action. Like when the robots are coming at you, you're like ducking behind stuff like that. You're not having to worry about where the controller's moving because it's just where you're moving that matters.
And it's an interesting like VR extension, I think, of the detective mode even. Like,
and I think all that, it almost feels like it was a perfect blend. But to have the teleport movement system in the Arkham VR was like, all right, I'm Batman, I'm teleporting around. So that was almost a surprise for me, but you really did feel like Batman. And that was what they were trying to convey, was like, be Batman.
What was it that made you feel like Batman?
So the first part of the demo is all about suiting up. You start as Bruce Wayne, you go to a fully functional piano, you can play notes, play the right notes, the door opens, and you can go into the Batcave, and you have to put on the glove, myself and a few others that I've talked to have had the same issue where they go to put on the cowl and donk. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm playing.
You whack yourself in the face.
I'm playing a video game.
I have done that
forgot.
multiple times in other games.
Budget cuts. We're up in a ceiling, and I'm trying to look down, and I'm on the ground.
He's trying to stick his head through
a hole, and I
panel.
hit the ground. That's why VR is great.
Dude, the floor is not going to give either. That's just going right
Nope.
in your face.
Straight through. I'm going to go through a few vibes.
The
but
technology I'm waiting for is where they get rid of the wire, because we also got tangled in the wire, just like turning around trying to see all the robots.
And hopefully, I think that'll be the next evolution of VR.
We saw the VR backpack out on stage at one of the press conferences as well.
Which, bulky, but a good
that was
step
at
forward.
the PC gaming press conference.
Yeah.
It was like it looked like like some armored backpack situation. You definitely look like a beetle person, like from the Hunger Games or something. But hey, if the wires
that's where we're going.
Tangled up,
great.
You know, I think to your point about the teleportation, I feel like we're gonna look back at that in 3 years and be like, remember when they hadn't figured out movement in VR yet?
Yeah.
Yep, that's such a good point.
Teleportation thing.
That's such a good point.
I will say though, like, so budget cuts and now Batman VR, it really feels like these are the first games that are beginning that process where it's like, this is what VR can be right now. This is what you can feel like. You wouldn't accidentally hit yourself in the face because it feels so real being in there.
And with the second half of that Batman demo was all about being in detective mode, which took you back to what it was like in Arkham Knight, where you can kind of like get a crime scene, fast forward time, and rewind time and try to figure out what happened. It's a demo, so I don't feel like this is much of a spoiler, but
You can't have spoilers for a demo VR experience. I mean, come on.
yeah. So, but the person that's dead that you're investigating that crime scene, I was shocked because like this is official Arkham canon, so I'm like, oh, it's sad to see it. But then you have to like go through, and it really got dark. You see them trying to escape and like wear their neck cracks, and it's like, this Batman game is dark.
Yeah.
I'm seeing what it's like to be in that universe, but you're like fast forwarding time, rewinding time, going around, finding the different clues.
That's neat.
Grapple hooking up here to figure out what happened up in this spot. You feel like Batman.
I heard you can also sling batarangs.
Yeah, unlimited batarangs. It's unlimited batarangs.
First try.
Yeah.
A little less dark, transitioning,
Yeah.
Flawless.
Star Trek.
Yes, definitely less dark than Batman.
And I think, like, if you're not gonna move around, you might as well be in a captain's chair.
Yeah.
Right?
Hell
Telling
yeah.
people what to do. Put the shields into the back and
Yeah.
What I found most interesting about that was, first of all, I love the presentation about having like all the Star Trek cast members using it together.
It was really
That's
cool.
great.
That was really good.
But what that really got me thinking was, how many of my friends, like, we're in a unique situation. We're friends, but we work on a YouTube channel where we're all together. Yeah, we'll have a couple PlayStation VRs. But what about like the normal consumer and his friends? Like, how many PSVRs will there be? And like having a 4-person co-op experience, it might be a little more of a stretch to achieve, but still great.
Also, you open yourself up to trolls. Because I know if I was jumping in random games, I saw there, you know, I'd be like trying to figure out, how do I transport people off of the ship and just like into space? Just like,
whoops.
Oh yeah, those look like they're about to attack. Let me just lower all the shields. Yeah, just,
It's like,
I
no,
want to be that guy.
let's make a peaceful.
Sounds like Sea of Thieves is right where
Yeah.
you're
yeah,
at.
there you go.
Oh, Sea of Thieves, that's another great one.
Yeah.
I think, you know, one of the you make a good point. You see people playing VR together, it raises the question, how many thousands of dollars had to go into you guys putting the setup together? However, if you're someone trying to sell VR, you want to like have those experiences where if you sell one person the adopter, then they're going to turn into the proselytizer and be like, yo, get this, we can Star Trek Bridge Command together, bro.
That's true.
I'll be your Geordi. I want you to be my Picard.
It almost brings back what LAN parties used to be.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to bring your
great point,
PlayStation with your PlayStation
I used
VR,
to
bring your
lug a
television.
PC to my friend's house.
Yep, and you get to do it again. And you know, as someone that did stuff like that before, like I would love to do Star Trek VR at my friend's house. And like, hey guys, let's get together. You know, dibs on Picard because you know I'm the captain.
Yeah.
And then let's just play.
We were watching and we were like, we have to get George Takei
All right.
and play this game with us.
Oh, that
It
would be
the
so much
dream.
fun.
Yeah.
Do you think Ubisoft tried to get him in there?
I don't see. He had to have been busy because he'd be such a great go-to. You know, Ubisoft wanted it.
Yeah.
I feel like that game needs to have a way for you to like shake your fist in fury or like throw something at somebody to like biff them off the head in frustration because they're not doing their
You get
thing.
the Picard facepalm. As long as I get that motion, I'll be happy.
Just everyone is facepalming.
Just pull that emote into the game.
What else do we have? Raw Data had a new build here, which is another great. We played it on the Vive.
Now tell me about Raw Data. It's not a title I'm familiar with.
All right, so in Raw Data, I don't know if it's been available on Oculus. I know definitely on Vive because it utilizes the 2 cameras, and it puts you into a space.
Okay.
And enemy robots can appear all the way around you. And you get to choose in the first demo, you can choose from a sword, and like hit back bullets is great. You can get double pistols or you get a shotgun.
Okay.
But you saw like other guns that you can wind up using, but not in the first demo. Those guns are now available, and I've never felt like more of a badass. And I've done some pretty badass things in my life.
He hasn't. That's an
like,
exaggeration.
There was a moment where I picked up one sword, and I was like, oh, I have 2 swords, great. And I'm like slicing at robots in front of me, and then like I hear a shot come from behind me, and I just and then like hit from like block behind me, and I look over my shoulder and I just see the bullet fly back at the person. It's like that's what you get with Raw Data.
That
You're going
is
through like
pretty
these multiple levels. It's just
Raw
a way
Data
to
made me realize that I have no idea how to swing a sword. There were robots near me, and I was just like, get away!
I'm gonna put this on you.
And everyone's
It's gonna
yelling
hurt.
at everyone's yelling at me. You need to swing it. That's not how you swing a sword. And I was like, right. Take a full swing.
If the developers of Raw Data are watching, I had a moment in the game that I would really like addressed. Is I too went double swords, and I was blocking and stuff, and then I had one robot who wasn't shooting at me, and I had robots over here who was shooting at me. I'm like, I gotta get rid of this robot, and I just kind of reacted, and I'm like, sword throw, and I launched the controller, which doesn't throw the sword.
Yeah.
We're
But
on
I
our
think-
second Vive.
I think if you are willing to sacrifice a controller like that, I think it should reward you with a sword throw.
I feel like
possibly just cost yourself a lot of money. I feel at least they could have let me take out that robot.
I feel like the developers might classify that as user error.
Yes, well, but why not reward user error in that
anything-
one scenario?
that just shows what VR is.
Yeah.
Like it's so encompassing, it tricks your brain.
Yeah, like you said, with the block, you start doing things that just like feel intuitive to do, and
Yeah.
sometimes they work out, and other times not so much.
I feel like almost every time I pull off the headset, I'm like, oh, the world.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I have a
exist
similar.
here, yes.
I have a similar reaction, but it's more like, oh, the world.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna go back in here now.
Well, speaking of exaggerated motions, right? I feel like VR is turning us all into the gamer from the 90s commercial, right? Like
We're all kid chameleons.
Right? Yep. Just all the extra giant movements.
Yeah. And so I was doing that today. I got to play Farpoint, Sony's sort of new announced shooter on an alien planet.
Oh, yeah, that looks cool.
To go with the like rhombus gun controller they have that's got two
It's like
thumbsticks.
It looks like a gun, but definitely doesn't look like a gun,
Definitely
so
not.
everyone's safe.
It's like some dad's kid is like, get me a gun toy, get me a gun toy. He's like, get some PVC piping and puts it together into something
there
that's
you go.
enough like it that the kid's gonna be cool with it, but
It's
not
Christmas
you know,
at my house.
Nothing weird.
Yeah.
The old the old
There's
Jovenshire
PVC pipe and
crafting.
rubber bands. Make something cool.
It's a creator's kit. So I've got this thing in my hands, and one of the gun, you start with an assault rifle, and you don't have to reload. It just overheats if you fire too much.
Yeah.
What did I do when I noticed that the end was getting real hot and orange? And they're like, yeah, we thought about making that work because it could if you have a microphone on, it could detect that, but we didn't put it in. And I'm like, of course you didn't put it in. That would be hella stupid for a soldier to be like, shooting a lot and then. So dumb.
That's not how that works. Yeah.
But so natural.
Here I am doing this in VR. But so I played that one, and it was the first time that I you do this sort of you've done shooting stuff, you've done blocking stuff, and it feels good. It feels cool. I'm like dodging. I'm trying to do like action hero stuff, but getting it down to my hip and firing and like moving around. I think that Farpoint game, the demo they have here, feels like a pretty like it feels almost like an experience, you know, in terms of
Absolutely.
the scale of it, right? In terms of like this is maybe not what I'd qualify as a full-fledged proper game, but I think VR.
It's getting there.
I think it sort of harkens back to that old indie argument of like, is it a full-fledged game? Games can be any size, can be any length, can be any kind of thing. So I had a good time with it, and I shot some bugs and felt a little cool. I was cackling with delight at a few times. Always a good sign.
Well, it's funny to use that as a transition. You're right. It's like you're seeing like these smaller games, or you go into these larger scale. Which my biggest shock with the Bethesda announcement of Fallout 4 next year on the Vive.
Yep.
And immediately I'm like, I can't even fathom being in that world. And I'm very curious to know how movement works. I haven't played it yet.
Yeah.
I want to know, is it a teleportation? Because it is Vive, and there is at least how I play, there's a huge stealth element. So I want to have those moments where I'm behind something and I see a raider, so I pop around the corner, get my shot, and take it, and I can't wait to be in these universes, to be in that universe. And they haven't said it yet, but dear God, if they don't, I'll be angry. Skyrim VR.
Ooh,
like
I go like this, you roar at people.
Yeah.
Yes. And let's go even further. Let's get like any Bethesda, the Doom VR also. Like, what a great fit to be in that world. That's why I love VR.
You mentioned the movement thing. I was going to say, has anyone seen that omnidirectional treadmill?
Yeah.
I forget who makes it.
I feel like there's a couple infinite treadmill.
Yeah.
I'm like, I
Everyone
wonder if
looks
that
goofy.
is that the solution to the movement problem? Because you would actually be moving.
Well,
but
I saw people demoing it, but I couldn't see the screen, and they didn't have one of those tracks to it. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a teleportation.
Everyone
or
looks
if it's,
really goofy when they use that thing. You have to like awkwardly lean forward
You
to
do
run
have to kind of
forward
lean
in place.
into it, right?
Yeah.
But let's keep it real. Ain't nobody looking cool playing VR.
No.
that's true. You look like a nerd.
We actually put googly eyes on our Vive.
We do that too.
Yeah.
It's just, you gotta lean into it.
just
Great
like
minds.
just take it.
Great
Just
minds
take
think
it.
alike.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like, to our point about putting your face into the ground or chucking the controller, it should be mandatory to like just set up a GoPro to watch you while you play VR.
Yep.
Like at least the first 6 hours or something until you work out all the kinks and you remember you've got the head-mounted display and you're not like literally like I was serving tennis balls and whacking myself in the face. So graceful.
I've whacked other people in the face.
Yeah,
everyone's got to watch.
You really
You're
need
in
a
the play
space to
zone.
play.
That is my zone.
Yeah,
If you come in my zone, you might get smacked in the face
You
with a
have to be okay with that.
controller.
You don't stand on the tracks when the train's coming.
Yeah,
Right.
All right.
We stupidly set up our office where the play zone is like between the door and our desk. You have to walk through this like zone of possibly
Dodging.
getting So you have to. It's almost a
It's
separate mini game. It's like get by the guy with the VR controllers without getting destroyed.
Can't wait to have that VR
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
Speaking of Fallout 4, how about this VR experience?
Right? And then using the control.
Dude, that Pip-Boy's gonna
The
be
Pip-Boy.
right on your arm.
yeah.
And
Which I thought
and
was
it's
kind
not
of.
going to be kind of slipping down, or your iPhone's not going to be responding
Yep.
well, or something
It's like, sure, there it is. All right, turn. Nope. It's going to be. It's so perfect. It's so perfect.
And so Fallout 4 and Doom, and Resident Evil 7, we're not sure exactly what the scope of that game is, but this is really the first E3 where we're seeing AAAs, we're seeing these big franchises attached to VR, making either adapting to VR or just moving entirely into the VR space.
I think the goal is just like who's going to be the first one? Who's the early adopter that's going to do it right first? And I think everyone wants to jump into the space right now.
Even Razer announced that they have their TK2 unit, I think is what it's called, which it has like full Steam support. It's just very interesting. You see all these major players jumping in, which is fantastic for us. Because now, the more competition just, it breeds excellence. Everyone wants to be better than the competition, so we are going to get the best product.
Absolutely, and you know what? I was talking with Palmer Luckey last year about PlayStation VR and the competition, right? His perspective was he wants them all to succeed. He wants them all to do well because he doesn't want someone to try one of those VR things, have a bad experience, and then write off VR forever, because then you've lost that consumer and the market suffers. VR, for all our enthusiasm for it, have people played it, it still is going to be a tough sell.
I'll admit, I was a VR naysayer. Like I mentioned a couple segments ago, I'm a PC gamer at heart. I play everything with a mouse and a keyboard, and I was like, why would I ever want this? I'm always going to want that mouse and keyboard in my hands.
Sure.
And then I played Oculus a little bit. It was all right. I was doing Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. That's a pretty fun game.
And this was the early Oculus.
Yeah,
that we
the
were
early
using at the
Oculus.
time.
And then I tried the Vive, and I was like, I need a Vive. I want to do this all the time. It's so fun.
This is the best. What room in my house can I clear of all other objects to have the Vive? We've had Jeff Kanata on hosting earlier, and what he's done is using some IKEA products, he basically created like a fishing pole-esque mount from his like PC desk. The cables run on this pole that has some give, and then they come down to the back of his helmet. So he's not getting tangled up. He's just he looks like a fish dangling on a hook, but it seems neat, and it seems like that's the kind of solutions that people are finding as we think about like, all right, these things are really coming, they're here, and they're even coming more.
Something that we had a chance to experiment with, and to kind of brag a little bit, I don't think anyone else has done this yet, but we did like Space Pirate Trainer.
Okay.
It was a Vive game, and we set up the Vive in a large studio space, all green screen.
Yeah, there's a mod where you can set up an extra Vive controller as camera
an in-game camera.
The game.
So you put that controller on an actual camera, and so you can move the in-game camera, and then we're using a green screen so we can track out all the green, put the person literally into the game.
The trick is just to get the virtual camera to line up where your actual camera is and make it one-to-one as far as the movement.
And I think
to also have a complete green screen room.
Yeah,
because then if you pan up, you can see kind of.
Obviously, our space is YouTube and digital media, and to see what VR is going to do for Let's Plays, what it's going to do for just YouTube gaming videos, I think is going to be very interesting in the near future.
Do you think, I mean, if, obviously watching someone in that setup is really interesting, and that's like the ideal way to showcase VR, which is a really hard challenge. But that takes a lot of resources to get that set up, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about streaming is, it's pretty low barrier to entry, all things considered. Do you think, how do you see VR shaping up as something that people, try to watch or try to stream?
In our case, all it took was one really smart guy.
Yes. Shout out to Tim Baker.
Yeah.
Well,
Tim
and
Baker
a studio
from Tim's
space
channel.
and a big green
Yeah,
screen.
this is
Now,
true.
we had a lot of resources to be able to tap in to do this, but even still, I think it's going to bring us back to why people loved watching Let's Plays of horror games. Because now just throw on the PSVR and let's see a Let's Play of someone playing. I want to see everyone playing Resident Evil. I want to see PewDiePie doing it. I want to see us doing it. Markiplier. And just, it's so easy. Just do the picture-in-picture, and you're going to see a whole new level of scare because you're in the game.
But
and I think Let's Plays are going to really benefit from VR.
To your point, I think streamers beat us to the punch a little bit, just using green screen to put themselves into the shot.
A great way to utilize the space.
So,
but I also would like to see people doing, the jumping around, that physical element of this sort of streaming. Streaming is to some extent a performance, and seeing a more physical element of that.
Yeah.
It'd be
That
great
seems
if
really
you started
cool.
seeing
I'm
like
looking at you
really
guys.
athletic streamers now. They're the ones that take over.
Yeah,
Like the out of shape
like
guys
you
like
guys
us
here.
fall by the wayside.
no, we
These
can't keep
guys
up.
doing like sweet jumps
the
and
new
flips.
breed of gamer, gamers 2.0.
Yeah,
Once
gamers.
you go wireless, you'll have people doing real life 360 no scope backflip shot, trick shots.
I'll be out of a
stuff.
job.
Yeah, we'll be
on the side
we'll
eating the
obsolete.
Doritos in the Mountain
Yeah,
Dew.
we better start taking gymnastics classes or
start
something.
getting on it
Keep
now.
up with the new wave.
That I would subscribe to that channel.
Yeah.
But
this,
taking gymnastics classes specifically.
Hardcore gaming.
Not a bad idea. This E3, I think, is taking VR into a fantastic step. And I think next year will be even more.
Absolutely. I mean, they'll all be at market. PSVR coming later this year. Pretty exciting times for us here in the games industry, especially with VR. Hope you folks have enjoyed our VR coverage here from GameSpot. We've got one more live segment to close out the show, and that's looking far, far into the future for E3 2017. We'll be right back.